What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. So, this is going to be a very personal episode of Joe Winko Talk, and it's also going to be quite a bit negative, really. But I really just wanted to do this episode of Joe Winko Talk just to vent and let you guys know that I'm still alive and everything. So, I know I'm not the only person saying this, but year 2020 has literally been the worst year of my life. It could be much worse, but it really is the worst year of my life, and mainly because of the pandemic going on, the coronavirus pandemic. Now, it would be a lot easier if I was actually living by myself because this whole thing would be much easier to wait out because then I'd be able to tell myself, well, I'm all alone, I'm by myself, no one else is here with me, I'm safe, I don't have to worry about catching coronavirus. But unfortunately, I do not. As you guys know, I live with my adoptive dad's brothers down in Florida. And it sucks even more because, as you guys all know, I have a mild form of autism. And with my autism, I already don't like being around people at all. I mean, yeah, like I always loved Florida and I still love Florida and wanted to live in Florida and everything. And I knew that I would have to live with my adoptive dad's brothers and everything. And at that time, I didn't really mind living with my adoptive dad's brothers. I mean, yeah, it's not the ideal situation, but I didn't really mind it before the pandemic. But then once this pandemic hit and we were told that we should stay away from people and everything, and with my autism mind, I already know that I don't like being around people, but then I was stuck with my adoptive dad's brothers. It sucked, really. And I started worrying about my health and everything. Because another thing is, I don't really like being cooped up in the house all day. If you guys are familiar with my adventure videos, I love going out, I love exploring. I always would post ads on the rideshare section of Craigslist and find a stranger on Craigslist to go for a drive with. But because of this coronavirus stuff, I can't do that at all. I have to stay at home and stay safe. But the thing is, I don't even feel safe at home because I'm living with two idiots who aren't even taking the coronavirus pandemic seriously at all. They're Donald Trump supporters, both of them are, so that right there should explain everything. And I was worrying about my health, and that's when I started hating living with them. Luckily, however, one of my adoptive dad's brothers left the state to live with his girlfriend who lives out of state, and I was so happy about that. And he actually left a really long time ago, way back in May. Yeah, way back in May, like in late May, that's when he left. So he's been gone all summer, and I just hope he never comes back. I'm glad he left. Thank God he left. And my other adoptive dad's brother, let's just say that their names are Tim and Dane. Tim was the one who left to live with his girlfriend who lives in another state, thank God. But my other adoptive dad's brother, Dane, he literally spends every single night at his girlfriend's house, but he still comes back to this house every single day for God knows what reasons, I don't know why, but he comes back to this house every single day to do random stuff. And the truth is, I haven't seen Dane in days. I mean, he comes to this house and I hear him walking through the hallways and everything, but I haven't seen him in days, honestly. I stay in my room whenever he walks into this house and whenever he's here, and I actually do not leave my room until 3 hours after he left because I read online that that's the maximum amount of time that coronavirus stays floating in the air. I mean, I know that may seem a bit over the top, but that's just what I always do. And in addition to that, I also duct taped my air conditioning vent shut because I read online that the coronavirus can spread through air conditioning because air conditioning blows air through different rooms of the house, and it recycles air through the house and everything. And when I read about that, I was like, oh, I better tape this fucker up. No way I'm catching COVID. So that's exactly what I did. So that's why my air conditioning vent is duct taped shut. Luckily, I can tolerate the heat though, so that's a good thing. That's the Hawaiian blood in me. And the Jamaican blood also. And the Egyptian blood. But we're getting off topic. There's a major thing that I want to clarify. Me and my adoptive dad's brothers, me, Tim, and Dane, none of us own this house at all. This house actually belongs to one of my other adoptive dad's relatives who lives out of state, but who doesn't live at this house. So none of the people living in this house actually own this house at all. That's just one thing I want to make clear to you guys. To be completely honest, I've been having some difficulty with Dane, my adoptive dad's brother, who still comes by this house almost every single day, who I wish would just go away, really. As I said earlier, both of my adoptive dad's brothers, they're both Donald Trump supporters, and none of them believe that the coronavirus is a serious issue. I'm really the only one who knows that this coronavirus is a serious issue, really. They're both really stupid, and Dane, he's in his 50s, but he acts like he's 15. Literally, acts like he's 15. He doesn't look 15, though, but he acts like he is. He goes out every single day, and I have no idea where he goes, and never have any idea when he's going to be walking through the door and everything, and I have no idea where he goes, and it's kind of stressful, really, that he keeps coming back to this house over and over again, even though he has another place to sleep. I wish he would just stay with his girlfriend all the time instead. I asked him to wear a mask when he walks into the hallway outside my room, because the hallway on the first floor, that's where my bedroom is, and it's right outside my room, the hallway that he walks through when he enters the house. And I'm always worried that if he's walking through the hallway and breathing in the hallway, whatever he's breathing out, it will be like floating out in the hallway and everything. So that's why I asked him to wear a mask. Sometimes he does, but other times he doesn't. And it really angers me when he doesn't wear a mask, because I'm a type 1 diabetic, and type 1 diabetics, and all diabetics really, are at higher risk for complications from coronavirus. And also, I'm African American. I mean, looks like a black guy to me. And African Americans are also at higher risk for complications of coronavirus because they're dying of it at a higher rate, and they think that it's something genetic about African Americans, and not just African Americans, but people with dark skins like Pacific Islanders, Filipinos, and Indian people and Native Americans. I'm actually mixed with Native American and Pacific Islander, as you guys know. They think that they're more likely to die of coronavirus due to the genetic makeup in their race and everything. And it's true, because they are dying at higher rates. I told him all that, and it literally flew right over his head. Literally flew right over his head. I've been living here since October of 2017, and I never had problems with Dane before. But it seems like he doesn't give a shit about me getting sick with COVID, or ending up on a ventilator, or ending up in the graves. And I honestly take that very, very personally, really. I've seen how bad people suffer with coronavirus, and it's horrible what these people go through, and it's horrible what happens to them. Dane also has friends over from time to time. Luckily, not that often, and not really that often at all, but he does have friends over from time to time. And he had a couple friends over, like, a few times. And whenever they're over, I do the same thing. I lock myself in my bedroom, I keep that door closed, and that door stays closed even 3 hours after they all leave. And I don't open it up until after 3 hours pass, and I don't walk into the hallway until after 3 hours pass. I also have this light that my grandma up in Canada got for me. My grandma on my adoptive mom's side of the family, that is able to kill germs floating in the air. It's an ultraviolet light, and it definitely works, because whenever I use it, I always smell like a burning smell, so it's pretty powerful. But I use that out in the hallway too, 3 hours after they left and everything, just in case anything is still, like, lingering out there. I remember one time back in early August, Dane had a friend over, and I heard them talking in the hallway outside my bedroom. And by then, Dane knew that I was worried about the coronavirus, and he knew that I didn't want to have any people over. And I didn't like having people over because I was worried about the coronavirus. I mentioned that many times before, because when Tim was here, he had a friend over, and I said, oh, you shouldn't be having people over during this pandemic. That's not a good idea. So Dane already knew that I didn't like having people over, because I never have people over, but Dane had someone over during this pandemic. And when they came over, I got mad at Dane, and I sent him a text message. I told him that he's putting me in danger having people over during this coronavirus pandemic, because this virus can spread asymptomatically even though a person seems fine. And he just blew off my text. I saw that he read it, but he just blew it off. And then I told him that I wish he would disappear so I would be safe from coronavirus, because if he did disappear, I would be safe from coronavirus. And then he replied with, oh, sounds great, buddy. Well, you can leave this house whenever you want to. I have no other place to go, and he clearly does, because he spends every single night at his girlfriend's house. I wish he would just stay over there, seriously, and I wish I had a girlfriend who I could go stay with. Well, not a girlfriend, because I'm not into girls at all. But I wish I had, like, a reclusive boyfriend who I could stay with instead. I actually did a video about that back in May, but yeah. And I texted him, and I even told him I can't leave at all because I have no other place to go. And he can't kick me out at all because this house does not belong to him. So he can't kick me out of the house at all. But he tried to. He didn't do this at the house, but the next day, my adoptive dad called me, and he wasn't angry or anything. He wasn't mad at me, but he told me that Dane called him. Dane called my 75-year-old adoptive dad, who lives in Wisconsin, 1,300 something miles away from Florida, and he told my adoptive dad, come down here and get your son now. Get him. Make him leave this house. Come and pick him up. And he was trying to tell my adoptive dad to drive all the way down through Illinois, through Indiana, through Kentucky, through Tennessee, through Georgia, through Florida to come pick me up. And Florida is a coronavirus hotspot. Georgia is a coronavirus hotspot, and he's asking my 75-year-old adoptive dad to drive that far down through Florida and Georgia to come pick me up just so he can sweep me out of the way. My adoptive dad, he was mad, but he wasn't mad at me. My adoptive dad wasn't mad at me. And you know, another stupid thing is, Dane also told my adoptive dad that when his friend was over, they had masks on and everything, and that they were social distancing. My gosh. He told my adoptive dad that they had masks on and everything, and they were social distancing. Now, as I was saying earlier, I'm autistic, so I have a pretty good sense of what things sound like and everything. I know what a person sounds like when they're talking while they're wearing a mask. And it did not sound like they had masks on. So he basically lied to my adoptive dad. However, my adoptive dad was definitely smart enough to know that he was lying, but it still pissed me off anyway. First of all, I was pissed off that Dane seriously thought that he could just call my adoptive dad and that my adoptive dad would just drive all the way down to Florida just to pick me up and take me out of the way and everything and kick me out of the house, even though he doesn't own this fucking house at all. And even after I've been living at this house for 3 fucking years, and after I settled into this house, and after I have a life here, and after I actually changed my address and became a resident of the state, and gone through all that stuff I had to go through to become a resident of the state of Florida, because there's a lot of stuff you have to do when you're moving to another state. I mean, it's not that difficult, but I mean, it's a lot of stuff you have to do. Get a state ID, this and that, and all that other stuff. That pissed me off, but what really pissed me off is my adoptive dad is 75 years old and is considered high risk for complications from coronavirus, just like I am. My adoptive dad is also worried about coronavirus, just like I am. And it may not seem like it, but me and my adoptive dad, we were never really close at first, but as I grew up and after they sent me down to Florida to live with their relatives, my adoptive dad and I started to become more close and everything, especially when he took me on the road trip to Alabama back in year 2018 because he found my profile on a dating site and he felt sorry for me because I wasn't able to find a lover or partner who likes to drive and go on road trips at all. I actually love how he automatically knew that I wasn't able to find a lover and partner who likes to drive and go on road trips. I mean, it still makes me laugh to this day how he just automatically knew that I wasn't able to find that. But my adopted dad felt sorry for me, so he took me on a road trip to Alabama and Jacksonville, Florida. And when someone does something nice for me like that, I mean, that's definitely not the only nice thing he's done for me. But when someone does something nice for me like that, it really goes a long way. And I care about my adoptive dad. And I don't want him to get sick. And I wouldn't want him driving down to the state of Florida, especially with the way the coronavirus cases have been in the state of Florida. I wouldn't want my adoptive dad going anywhere near Florida and putting his health at risk. I definitely wouldn't want that to happen. But the fact that this man, and he doesn't even deserve to be called a man, but the fact that this man, Dane, told my 75-year-old adoptive dad to drive more than 1,000 miles to a coronavirus hotspot where he'd be risking his health just so he can come pick me up and conveniently sweep me out of the way, that really struck a fucking nerve with me. So you're gonna put my fucking health at risk, but also put my adoptive dad's health at risk. That pissed me off. Someone who I actually care about, you're trying to put their health at risk. That made me mad. And you know, the fucking ironic thing is, excuse me for swearing so much, I'm just a bit heated up, but the fucking ironic thing is, he's actually the one who's related to my adoptive dad. So that just shows how much of an asshole Dane really is. But I hate Dane, and I honestly hope he disappears. I'm glad he spends every night at his girlfriend's house, and I hope he just stays there and never comes back. I just hope he never comes back to this house. I don't give a shit what happens to him, as long as he doesn't catch COVID, because then that would put my health at risk. But I'm going to be getting back to that later. But I just wish he would just stay away from this house and never come back and leave forever and never come back. And this may seem... this may seem a bit like, Joe, you're asking us that? But can you guys please all pray that Dane never comes back to this house again and that he just stays away for good and that he never comes back? I don't care what happens to him? I mean, he could just go for a long drive and never return and suspiciously disappear. He could get swallowed up by a tornado. He could get abducted by aliens. I do not care. I just don't want him to come back. I mean, it could be forever or it could be an extremely long time. I just don't want him to come back because he's putting my life and my health at risk, and it's obvious that he doesn't give a shit about what happens to me. Because in all honesty, I seriously do not want to die at all. There's stuff in my life that I still want to do. There's stuff in my life that I still haven't gotten to do yet. I have videos from last summer that I haven't even finished editing yet. I don't want to die of coronavirus because it's a horrible way to die, but I also don't want to die because of this fucking white trash Trump supporting idiot. And no offense to any white people watching this video, it's not like I'm anti-white or anything, because I actually am also part white myself. To be honest with all of you guys, I actually am part white myself. But there's a difference between a normal white person and a white trash person, and I think we all know what category Dane falls under. But anyway, getting to the title of this video, Canary in the Coal Mine, there's a really specific reason why I named this episode of Joe Winko Talk, Canary in the Coal Mine. That is because my adoptive dad's brother, Dan, as I was saying earlier, he spends every single night at his girlfriend's house, and I don't know where his girlfriend lives, but I'm assuming it must be someplace close by if he's driving back and forth from his girlfriend's house to this house every single day. I wish he would just stay at his girlfriend's house, but you guys already get the picture. And his girlfriend actually lives with her mother, and her mother is really old, and she's also a cancer survivor, which also makes her high risk for complications for coronavirus. So I remember a couple weeks ago, I was talking on the phone with one of my YouTube followers, and I mean, they're actually a friend and everything. I consider all my YouTube followers, all the people who watch my videos on YouTube, I consider all the people who watch my videos on YouTube my friends, because if a person didn't like me, I'm assuming they wouldn't watch my videos at all. But, I was talking to one of my YouTube followers slash friends, and it was just small talk. We were asking each other how we're doing because we haven't talked to each other in a while. And like me, he's also worried about the coronavirus. He lives in Pennsylvania and everything. But like me, he's also worried about the coronavirus. And he says that he's feeling fine and everything. But like Dane's girlfriend, he also lives with his mother, who's also really old and who's also a cancer survivor. She used to have cancer a long time ago. And he was telling me, oh, I hope I never catch coronavirus, but every single day my mother is fine and she's not sick at all, because if she would catch coronavirus, she would die. So I guess my mother is my canary in a coal mine. And he told me that while we were on the phone. And I didn't ask him what that meant, and I was just like, canary in a coal mine? And I was wondering, what does that mean? Because that was my first time ever hearing that term. And after we were done talking, I went to google.com and I looked it up. And for those of you who don't know what the term canary in a coal mine means, here's what Google told me. I'll read it to you guys right now. Canary in a coal mine, an allusion to caged canaries that miners would carry down into the mine tunnels with them. If dangerous gases such as carbon monoxide collected in the mine, the gases would kill the canary before killing the miners, thus providing a warning to exit tunnels immediately. So, yeah, that's what a canary in a coal mine means. It's like an analogy or something. I'm assuming it's kind of like a slasher movie. You're alone in a cabin with a with a person and you hear a noise outside, and then you get worried about the noise, and the person says, oh, I'll go see what it is. If I'm not back, then I was murdered by a serial killer. And then the person goes outside to see what the noise is, and then you hear a slashing noise and the person screaming, and right away you know that some knife welding maniac is outside. That's basically the same analogy as a canary in a coal mine. And to be completely honest, it's actually really fucked up, honestly, because, I mean, I actually do know Dane's girlfriend. Well, like, we're not friends or anything, and like, she's been over at the house before the pandemic. She's been here before, and I talked to her before, and she's actually a really nice person. A lot nicer than Dane, but she's actually a really nice person, and I think she's really cool. I mean, as I said, we're not friends. We don't talk to each other or text to each other or anything like that, but she's actually a really cool person. And I wouldn't want her mother to die at all. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't want her mother to die at all. And I don't, and I seriously hope she never dies at all. But it just seems really messed up that her mother is the canary in the coal mine. And yeah, I want Dane to stay away forever and never come back to this house again. I just hope he just stays at his girlfriend's house and never leaves at all, really. But that's how I know that things haven't gotten extremely bad yet, because I believe that if he got sick with coronavirus and then the mother died of coronavirus, his girlfriend's mother died of coronavirus and everything. I don't know why I think I would be aware of that, but I feel like I would eventually be made aware of that and everything. And that's when I know that things are really bad. And I don't know, it's just messed up. It's a really messed up situation, honestly. But then I also thought to myself, you know what? Why can't Dane be the canary in the coal mine instead? I mean, seriously, he's the idiot who's not taking the coronavirus seriously. He's going out acting like nothing's happened. He even once said that the coronavirus is a joke and everything. That's what both of my adoptive dad's brothers were saying. And it's stupid, really. However, that actually brings me to my next discussion point for this video. Now, there is this really creepy dream that I've been having. I first had this dream back in April, but I also had this same exact dream back in August and even last week. I wouldn't really call it a nightmare because it ended well for me, I guess. But it was a really creepy and really morbid and really gloomy dream. But still, I wouldn't call it a nightmare because it ended well for me, I guess. What happened in the dream was I woke up in my bedroom, and the first thing I noticed is that it felt really cold in my bedroom. And as you guys know, I live in Florida, and the first time I had this dream was in April, and also in August and September. And it never really gets cold in Florida, especially in April or August or September. So right away, I knew that something was up because it literally felt like I was sitting in a morgue and everything because it was like chilly in my bedroom, and I was kind of freaked out about that. So right away, I knew something was up. Also, my bedroom was really dark and really gloomy. Like, the lighting in my bedroom was, like, really dark and really gloomy. Like, exactly the same way it is right now. Like, all dark and gloomy and everything. And I also noticed that it was very quiet. Like, eerily quiet. Like, deathly quiet. And when I first had this dream, that's when my adoptive dad's brothers, Tim and Dane, that's when they were always at home. So it rarely was ever quiet whenever they were at home. So that's the thing. Then I hear my cell phone ringing, so I get up and I answer it. And it was my adoptive dad. He was asking me if I was okay, and I told him, yeah, I'm fine. And then my adoptive dad was asking me, oh, how are you feeling today? And when he asked me that, I was like, what? Because my adoptive dad, he never asked me, oh, how are you feeling today? Like, because I thought that was really weird. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. What happened? Why are you asking me that? And then he was like, Joe, you had the coronavirus. You tested positive for it a few weeks ago. And when he said that I had the coronavirus, I got freaked out and I was like, for some reason, my mind like automatically went to this. I thought that I was dead and I thought that I was a ghost or something. And I started panicking and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm dead now? And then my adoptive dad told me, no, Joe, you're fine. It's been a few weeks since you tested positive. You should have recovered by now. You were asymptomatic the whole entire time, so you're okay now. So don't freak out or worry about it. And I was actually very relieved, but I was also shocked too, because I'm going to say something, and I don't want people to like rely on this too much, because I want you all to take coronavirus seriously, and I want everyone to be careful not to catch it, and I'm still going to be careful not to catch it and everything. But they say that people with diabetes are at high risk of complications for coronavirus and for dying of coronavirus. But a lot of people can be asymptomatic for coronavirus. That's why I always tell my adoptive dad's brother to wear a mask whenever he walks in the hallway outside my room, because people can spread it asymptomatically. And for some strange reason, I always thought that if me and my adoptive dad's brothers all caught coronavirus, I always imagined that I would be the one to die and they would live. I have no idea why I thought that, but that's what I always imagined. That's what I believed at first. I still believe that's a possibility, but that's what I believed at first. But after I had this dream, I looked up online and I asked, can people with diabetes be asymptomatic for coronavirus? I typed that in online, and this one person who claimed to be a doctor said that people of all demographics can be asymptomatic for coronavirus, even people with comorbidities or underlying health conditions, or people who are old. Anyone can end up being asymptomatic for coronavirus. But then again, don't like rely on that. Still try to protect yourself, because you never know how this virus is going to affect your body, so you still have to be careful. But in addition to that, I'm also part of this diabetic support group on Facebook, and I was asking people, have any of you guys ever had coronavirus but was asymptomatic for it? And people started typing in, oh yeah, I had coronavirus, I was asymptomatic for it. The only thing is my blood sugars were going high and it was getting harder to keep them down. And my family members had coronavirus, but then when I got an antibody test, it told me that I had coronavirus antibodies in my blood. And I was surprised by that, because I always thought that if I caught coronavirus, that I would end up on a ventilator and dead. But people with type 1 diabetes, they can also be asymptomatic for coronavirus. And I thought that was very strange, really, because I thought that with having type 1 diabetes, you were much more likely to get serious complications from it. More likely, but that doesn't mean 100%. But still, I mean, I'm still going to try not to catch it and keep doing everything to keep myself safe. But that honestly gave me some relief hearing that, honestly. Also, in addition to that, I saw in a YouTube video that this doctor was talking about people who were infected with coronavirus but who were asymptomatic, and he said that there's many factors in that, like genetics. And me and my adoptive dad's brothers, we obviously have different genetics because we're not related, and I'll be getting back to that soon. But also, it depends on how much of the virus you're exposed to, like what amount. And as I said earlier, I'm doing everything I can do to keep myself safe. Whenever my adoptive dad's brother is here, I stay locked in my room and I don't leave my room until 3 hours after he left. I duct taped the air conditioning vent shut so the air conditioning isn't blowing any of his germs into my room at all. And I also wash my hands and use hand sanitizer all the time. And I never touch my eyes, nose, or face. And I've been staying at home literally all the time, literally 24/7. And if I ever did have to go out, I wear my mask and my goggles and my face shield whenever I go out. And sometimes even when I'm at home, when Dane comes here, like I'll wear them and I'll keep my distance from him and everything. But for some reason, I still worry that there might be a chance that I might end up catching coronavirus despite all that stuff that I'm doing to keep myself safe. But that video that doctor did when he was talking about how much of the virus you're exposed to determines how severe of an infection you might have, it really did make sense because I literally haven't been in contact with anyone because I've been keeping to myself so much. The only way that I would possibly catch it is if I caught it from surface contamination or walking into a room after someone had left. Those would be the only ways I would ever catch it. And I never leave this room until 3 hours after Dane leaves, because that's the maximum amount of time it takes for the virus to fall out of the air. So even if I did become infected with coronavirus, it'd be a low amount, which might end up turning out to be a very mild or even an asymptomatic infection. Because I also read online that some people with diabetes, like me, have caught the coronavirus and were asymptomatic, as I was saying earlier. But getting back to this dream, my adoptive dad told me that it's been a few weeks since I recovered and that I'm fine now and everything. And then I was glad, I was relieved. I was like, "Oh, thank God that I survived because I didn't want to die at all and I didn't want to suffer with this. Thank God I was asymptomatic." And then he was telling me, "Yeah, I'm really glad you survived too. I'm very glad you didn't end up like Tim and Dane." And then I was just like, "What? uh, what happened to Tim and Dane?" And he said, "Well, they caught coronavirus too, but it took a toll on them." And I was like, "Oh, what happened to them?" And he said, "Well, Joe, they were on ventilators for 3 weeks. They were really sick and everything, and both of them died last night." And then I was like, "Whoa, are you serious?" And I just remember this chill going down my spine. And it happened, I had this same dream multiple times. And in all the dreams, I felt that chill going down my spine when my adoptive dad said that. And I was just like, "Whoa, well, okay then." And I was just a little shooken up by that, really. I mean, because me and my adoptive dad's brothers, we aren't close at all. We definitely aren't close at all. I didn't start crying when I found out that they died, but it still like shook me up quite a bit because it always freaks me out when someone passes away. Like it does shake you up. I mean, I wouldn't be like jumping up and down happy that they died, but it freaked me out that they died. I was like, "Whoa, they actually died?" And I was just like, "Geesh." But then my adoptive dad was like, "Yeah, but you survived, Joe." And then he was telling me that after this whole pandemic thing is over and once he gets his vaccine, that he'll be coming down to Florida to pick me up and we'll be looking for vacation homes in Jacksonville, Florida together. And then he said, "Well, I have to go. Bye." And then he hung up and he said he would talk to me later. And then I woke up right then and I was like, "Whoa, that was That was crazy, really. It was a crazy dream. Now that dream, it was a creepy and it was a really morbid and gloomy dream, but I definitely wouldn't call that a nightmare because it didn't end well for my adoptive dad's brothers, but it ended well for me. I mean, because I survived and I was alive and everything. But it didn't end so well for my adoptive dad's brothers. So I always usually think of a nightmare as something bad happening to you, but nothing bad happened to me in that dream. I survived, and I mean, getting coronavirus was bad. I would never want to catch that, but I was asymptomatic, luckily, and I survived and everything. However, I'd still be worried if that happened in real life because I don't know what the long-term effects of coronavirus are. Because it's a new virus, and I'd be worried about the possible damage that it could have done to my body, even though I was asymptomatic. But it didn't seem, like in that dream at least, it didn't seem like it did any damage to my body because I was feeling fine. So I'm not sure that would be the one bad thing about it, but that was that's really the only like downside I saw in that dream, really. I actually told my adoptive parents about that dream. I called both of them on the phone and I was talking to them about it, and they themselves even told me, well, Joe, that is very likely. I mean, you do so much to keep yourself safe. And besides the diabetes, you're really young. And young people can die of the coronavirus too. But, I mean, it doesn't happen very often. But still, everyone should try to stay safe and try their best not to catch the coronavirus because you don't want to be one of the exceptions, one of the young people who die. I certainly don't want to be. And also, my adoptive parents told me that Tim and Dane are a lot older than I am, and they told me, I don't know why you think that Tim and Dane wouldn't die of this virus if they caught it, because they can die of it too. And that's another fact that I always tend to overlook. These men that I'm living with, well, one of them left, but both of them, these men are not young. They're not stupid young frat boys in their 20s. I mean, they definitely act like stupid young frat boys in their 20s, but they are not in their 20s. They're in their 40s and their 50s. They're a lot older than I am. And they ain't spring chickens at all either. And I just remember thinking, you know what? If we all actually do end up catching coronavirus, that would honestly be the best outcome, really. Me surviving and me not dying at all. Just like most of my Sims 2 horror movies. And I like that ending. I prefer that ending instead, me surviving. Because I'm really the only one smart enough to know that coronavirus is a serious issue. Well, out of the three of us, I'm really the only one smart enough to know that coronavirus is a serious issue. I mean, the other two guys, they think it's fake, but I'm the only one smart enough to know that it's serious. It's just like the survivor girl you see in horror movies. The girl who survives the horror movies, she's always the smartest one. She's always the one who outsmarts the killer, and she's always the one who escapes and who survives. And this may seem cruel, but Dane tried kicking me out of the house. He's had his friend over during this pandemic, even though I told him that it's not a good idea to have friends over and I'm high risk and trying to stay away from people, but it flew right over his head. He gets upset about when I tell him to wear a mask out in the hallway, and sometimes he doesn't wear a mask out in the hallway. So he obviously doesn't give a shit if I end up dead. So why should I give a shit if he ends up dead? So I don't. Either way, I still would never want to catch coronavirus, even if I was asymptomatic for it, because I'd be worried about spreading it to other people. But the truth is, I'm not physically close to any of the people who I actually care about. And what I mean by that is, I have friends who I talk to on the phone. I have friends who watch my videos on YouTube, who I care a lot about, and I love all you guys and everything. But I don't have any friends who live in Florida. Well, yeah, I do have some YouTube followers who live in Florida, but they live a long ways from me because Florida's a big state. But I don't have any friends who actually live in my area and who I actually know in person and who I actually interact with and everything. I care about my adoptive parents too, and I definitely wouldn't want them to catch coronavirus, but they would never catch it from me because I don't live with them and I haven't been around them in more than a year. But please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. It's not like I would purposely go and try to infect people with coronavirus. Gosh, I'm not that fucked up. And I definitely wouldn't be attending any COVID parties so a bunch of deranged bug chasers can swarm me and everything. I'd still stay at home and not infect anyone. That's what I would do if I had coronavirus. But no one who I care about walks into this house except me. That's the thing. And I'm talking about right now because my adoptive parents been at this house before and I definitely care about my adoptive parents. But nowadays, no one who I care about walks into this house at all except me. And that's the thing. And also, it seems like Dane thinks that I'm trying to take over this house and call it my own and everything. But that's not true. It just so happens that I'm here. This is where I'm at this time, and this is where time has me during this coronavirus pandemic. So I'm just trying to stay safe here. But I'm not trying to take over this house and call it my own so I can keep it forever. Because in all honesty, this house is a dump. There's tons of clutter. There's outlets that don't have covers on them. There's a huge hole in the front door that's been there for 3 years. The roof is also torn out in the kitchen, and it's been that way ever since I moved down here. And the flooring is ripped out of the bathroom. And a free tip, it was actually Dane who decided to do that. I have no fucking idea why he decided to do that, but whatever. And to top it all off, this house is way too close to the water, and the moment a category 5, 4, 3, or even a 2 hurricane ends up striking this place, this house will be obliterated. Literally. And I know for a fact that they don't have insurance on this house at all. I'm 100% certain they don't have insurance, and it's obvious they don't have insurance on this place. Get real. I'm actually still mad that I'm still living at this house after 3 years. If I had it my way, I'd be living in a small cottage in Ocala, Claremont, or Inverness, Florida. But my adoptive parents have been saying that they want to come down and get a vacation home a few miles west of the city of Jacksonville, Florida, so they have a place to visit once in a while whenever they wanted to come down to Florida, and they wanted to have me stay at the house and watch it for them while they're up in Wisconsin. I actually mentioned this quite a few times in my previous episodes of Joe Winko Talk. They've been wanting to do that for a while, but because of this coronavirus pandemic and because Florida has been so hard hit by the coronavirus and because it's dangerous for them to come down here with all that stuff going on, they don't want to come down here yet until there's a vaccine, which is very understandable. Unlike Dane, I don't want my adoptive dad to get sick at all. Well, I don't want Dane to get sick at all either because that put me at risk. But I don't want my adoptive dad to get sick at all. And Dane is actually the one who's related to them, which is really stupid because he didn't mind my adoptive dad driving down here to pick me up and trying to talk my adoptive dad into it. I'm still angry about that, even though it's been more than a month. But this pandemic, it fully revealed how much of an asshole Dane really is, because me and him been living with each other for 3 years, and we obviously never been close at all. Obviously not, because if we were close, I would feel safe with him living here, and I would never wish for him to disappear if we were actually close to each other. But also, he would be nice enough to not have friends over while there's a contagious disease spreading everywhere and killing a whole bunch of people. And he would also be nice enough to wear a mask whenever I ask him to help keep me safe. And he does wear a mask sometimes, which is good, but not always when he's here. So me and him obviously aren't close at all. And it also pisses me off that he tried getting my adoptive dad to drive more than 1,000 miles to a coronavirus hotspot state just so he can sweep me away and take me out of this house. And just that he seriously thought my adoptive dad was actually going to do that. It pisses me off when he's the one who has his own car and he's the one who has another place to go when he can just sleep at his girlfriend's house every single night. What a fucking bastard. Seriously. By the way, that also brings me to my next point. As you guys should know, I actually love playing The Sims, and whenever I play The Sims, I always try to keep my Sims safe, and I always try to make them happy and give them a happy life and make them successful and everything. Well, since I love The Sims so much, and since I hate my adoptive dad's brother so much, one idea that I had was doing a gaming live stream of me playing The Sims 1, Sims 2, Sims 3, and Sims 4, and making Sims out of my adoptive dad's brothers and having them die in The Sims 1, Sims 2, Sims 3, and Sims 4, and live streaming it on YouTube. I thought that would be an awesome idea. It is an awesome idea. I actually typed about that on Facebook and on Instagram, and I was asking everyone, should I do a live stream of me making my adoptive dad's brothers in The Sims 1, Sims 2, Sims 3, and Sims 4, and have them die in the game and have you guys watch it? And at first I thought people were going to get upset with me and angry at me about that, but everyone was actually hyped about it, and they were typing in, oh yes, you should, I would totally watch that. And then I was just like, wow, I have to do that now. Jeez. It's fucked up, but it's funny. Wow. But yeah, that's definitely on its way, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be an interesting live stream because I'm going to be playing all 4 of the Sims games in one live stream. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, that's it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Sorry it was a bit negative and a bit harsh, but as you guys should know, that's the whole point of all my YouTube videos, for you guys to get to know me and to know what goes on inside my crazy autism mind, and seeing the good sides of me and also the not so good sides of me. But yeah, whatever. So that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Let me know what you thought of this whole episode and what you thought of that creepy dream I had. And don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So that's it. Peace out, people.